Let's talk about it. Is your dog showing signs of reactivity? It's essential to understand the signs and the behaviors that indicate your dog is reactive and their tendencies. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about 8 signs so you can understand if your dog's reactive. But the first thing I do want to talk about is there's a big misconception. I hear a lot of folks saying, oh, my dog's aggressive, my dog's reactive, and just using the words, you may not know the difference. So first and foremost, let me just clarify the difference. So a reactive dog are not necessarily aggressive. They have strong reactions to certain things or certain stimuli in the environment. So whether it's new people, animals, or unfamiliar situations, they have reactions that's driven by fear. An aggressive dog, their intentions are to hurt. So keep that in mind. When you're talking about, oh, my dog's reactive, what are their intentions? Are their intentions to hurt, or are they just a little bit fearful of things going on? But today we're talking about reactivity. I'm going to talk about 8 signs you can look for that's going to display if your dog's being a little bit reactive. So let's just jump right into it, right? So the first sign is probably the most common one that you may know of is the barking and growling. Reactivity may manifest through excessive barking and growling when they're faced with a situation that's unfamiliar or intimidating. When I work with families, I always say, if you notice your dog is reactive, it started long time ago and you're just now noticing. That's why when I love working with families when they newly adopt a dog, so I can kind of figure things out. But what I say is, if you are working with, if you have a dog, right? And first the barking and growling started a long time ago, usually how it starts is they'll stop. Say you're on a walk, for example, they'll stop, right? And then usually we're like, no, 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 come on, it's okay. But to the dog, it's not okay, but they reluctantly keep going. Then you may notice, like, a low, like puff, like like that. But usually we're like, oh, it's not a problem. Let's keep going. And then next, along the line, maybe it's months later, weeks later, years later, you hear roof, 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 roof. You're like, oh my gosh, my dog is, aggressive, because that's what I hear when it's really reactivity. My dog's aggressive, but no, no, no. They've been trying to tell you a long time ago that they wasn't feeling too hot about things. So definitely, if any type of low growling, barking, hesitation, but barking in general is definitely a sign that your dog may be reactive. Next, number 2, lunging and pulling. So that one, reactive dogs do tend to lunge forward and pull and things like that. The one common situation I see is dogs on leash. When if they're reactive towards people or other dogs, they may walk fine, but soon as they see another dog or person, they begin to bark and lunge and pull on the leash. But again, to play devil's advocate, right? I always say this is why I love doing consultations. So what I'll sometimes figure out after going to a consultation is that the lunging and barking is not because the dog is reactive, because they're so excited to see another dog. So make sure you're looking at your dog. You know your dog more than anyone else. So when they're lunging and things like that, you want to decide, is that a type of lunge where they're excited to see another dog or person or whatever it may be, or is it truly reactive where they're lunging forcefully to move, to kind of, indicate to that dog or whatever, like, I don't like you or whatever, I'm reactive and things of such. So just keep that in mind. Number 3, raise fur. When dogs are reactive, they lunge forward. You may see the hackles, we call it hackles, on their back stand up. And that's another sign of reactivity. With some dogs, it may be clear because they have longer fur. I have a Frenchie, so sometimes when her fur stands up, it looks a little bit different. You may see a color shift on the top of their back with the dogs with the shorter fur, but definitely looking at the fur on their back is definitely a response for them that they perceive fear or danger and they're like reactive. Next, their ears being pinned back against their head is a sign that they feel anxious or uncomfortable in certain situations. So reactivity can cause feelings of uneasiness, them being uncomfortable. And so soon as you see your dog's ears going flat back, is definitely a first sign that, hey, they are, feeling a little bit uncomfortable. They may get a little bit reactive. Number 5, I talked about this earlier with number 1, the freezing and stiffening. I always say that's the number 1 sign. That's where it starts. If your dog stops for any reason, they're feeling uncomfortable. They're feeling a type of way. It doesn't matter if you don't know how they're feeling, they're stopping for a reason. And definitely that's a sign of reactivity starting with them feeling uncomfortable. Vocalization changes. We are all in tune. Well, I can't say all. I'm just using that very vaguely. Well, I would hope, but we're all pretty much in tune to our dog. Like I said, you know your dog better than anyone else. But the vocalization changes. So reactive dogs, the vocalization will change just because they're trying to project fear, not project fear, but like get away, not feeling too cool about the situation or the stimuli or what's going on. They may even yell or howl. But definitely, I know even if you don't understand the different signs or the howls and stuff, when I work with families with reactive dogs, they know the difference because when I come in, they're like, I don't know what this is, but I definitely notice a different bark when they see a dog or see a person or someone comes into the home. So you definitely would notice a vocalization change. Also, this one you'll see. Number 7, increased salivation and drooling. Reactivity can be extremely stressful and anxious in some dogs, leading to excessive drooling and salivation and things like that. One thing I talk about is if you see a dog drooling and things like that as such, look at the situation around you, right? If you're at a 5-course dinner at home, of course they're drooling because they probably want some food. But if they're in a situation where you're like, they haven't been in before or it's not, you haven't seen it, most likely they're drooling because they're feeling stressed or anxious. And that definitely could be a sign of reactivity or lead to that given, under the right circumstances. Number 8, hiding and seeking shelter. When faced with triggers in a situations, reactive dogs may seek and hide for shelter. I know one common thing you might see, especially on walks, dogs hiding behind your legs, where they feel a little bit more safe and secure and things of such. They may feel a little bit, uncomfortable, so they do tend to seek shelter. These are the 8 signs. I'm going to run back through them really quickly, just so you can have them, and definitely come back to this podcast. Come back to this live. If you want to go through the 8 signs, because I know it can be a lot to kind of take in, but you want to make sure, especially you're here because you probably do have questions about your dog being reactive. So, number 1, barking and growling. 2, lunging and pulling. 3, the raised fur. Number 4, the ears being flat back. 5, freezing and stiffening. 6, vocalization changes. 7, the increased salivation and drooling. And number 8, hiding and seeking shelter. So if you see any of these 8 signs, it's definitely that your dog most likely is reactive. But if you have questions, always reach out. I love it when you reach out because then we can sort things together. There's no need to figure out things on your own if you're not a trainer, right? So I hope you gain some insight into reactivity and also what reactivity versus aggression is. Maybe I'll do another live on that. But as always, come back next week for another great topic, and I will see you later. Bye.